Hey guys, welcome back to this three-part series of why I believe right now is the time to buy ammo. First part of the series was why it's a good time to buy ammo. Right now we're going to talk about what ammo you should be buying. And we're going to stick with four main categories here. First off, 22 LR. 22 is something you need if you're a firearms person, especially if you are a firearms trainer or enthusiast or evangelist, like I kind of consider myself to be sometimes. It's fun to shoot for sure. To go out and have a good time, you can use 22, especially if you're taking out kids or people that it's just, they're going to the range for the fun of it, not necessarily the training. So having a good 22, like here's my son's 22, his AR-22 with a CMMG conversion kit in there. He loves this thing. So much fun with this thing. And so for him to keep shooting, for him to keep training, he needs 22. Also, for brand new shooters, having 22 is a very good cartridge to stick with. Now, speaking of new shooters, you don't want to have super low quality 22 for new shooters because it still needs to be reliable enough that they can focus on shooting and not having to deal with a lot of malfunctions. That being said, the inverse of that is just having the cheapest 22 you can find that's just basically junk. Well, you don't want junk, but you want it cheap. And for me, if I'm training a lot with 22, I'm fine having malfunctions. I just want it to be cheap, and the more malfunctions, the more training I get in there, basically. And then as far as what to buy, I'll just throw some out there. Basically, Aguila is something I really do like buying. Here we go, let's do this. Aguila is a good brand for 22 in my opinion. It is actually slightly, I wouldn't say it's bad. Slightly worse stuff would be something like Federal Auto Match, although I actually have pretty good experience with it. My girl behind the camera does not necessarily like Federal, as we should all know. If you've been watching the channel, you probably learned that. And of course, CCI mini mags, very, very good. Bang for the buck, unfortunately, to use that pun, but that ammo can be used in, just say, more serious situations if you're shooting varmints, or maybe for some people that's actually your defense ammo, but that is going to run very reliably in pretty much any 22. So that's kind of the two different categories you might go with for 22. Next up, 9mm. The reason we have 9mm is to defend ourselves. Now, yes, don't bring a pistol to a rifle fight, but most people, if they are in a defensive situation, is very likely that they should have a 9mm handgun on them. Yes, you can do 40 Smith & Wesson and 380 and 5.7 and 30 Super Carry, whatever, but 9mm is what we're going to default to. Reason being, shooting pistols, it's not easy. You need to train a lot to get good and to stay good with a pistol. So using a lot of 9mm is what you're probably going to have to do. Stock it up, ride out economic waves. You want to keep shooting even if you can't afford the ammo at that cost at that time. Buy cheap, stack deep, hang on to it when it's cheap, or use it when it's cheap. Buy it when it's cheap, use it as you need to, and then, of course, if it's too expensive, you don't buy it at that time. Also, it's worth noting that 9mm 124 grain NATO, or FMJ NATO, that's actually the military's, or American, U.S. military's defensive ammo, and it is across the world too. Not defensive, but our go-to-war ammo. Don't get hyper fixated on having hollow point ammunition. You don't need to stockpile 1,000 rounds, or imagine 250 rounds of hollow points and you needed them all for defensive reasons. You probably have a lot of other issues going on that you needed that much for defense. Some of the brands that I like to go to, what to buy for 9mm, AAC is definitely good. In this case, I got some AAC 147 grain. I'll talk about the different grain weights in just a moment. AAC, Aguila, Blazer Brass, all very, very good, more than good enough for lots of training and in a pinch, or whatever you want to call it, defensive situations. So, but don't go nuts with defensive ammo. Don't spend too much and don't buy too much of it. Be reasonable about that. Then again, if you can find a lot of defensive ammo for a very good price and you've vetted it, you know that it is the ammo you want to keep, there is a lot of value in buying the same stuff, zeroing with it, training with it, being good at that ammo, and just keeping it for a long time or using it. Bullet weights for 9mm, 147 grain is the bullet weight that I prefer for short guns. Like here we got a Shield Plus, 3.1 inch barrel Shield Plus. I prefer 147 grain for these short subcompacts, or micro 9s is probably the better description for that. 3.6 inch gun. Today I'm carrying the 2.0 subcompact, or the what do we call it? The 9C 2.0. That's a colloquial term. It's not what they called it. That's what I'm carrying, and in a 3.1 inch barrel, I got 124 grains. Running 124 grains in there. And for a 4-inch barrel up to a 5-inch barrel, like my metal, the 3.6, the 4 1/4 metal, I run 115s up to the 5-inch barrel. And of course, there's nothing wrong with having just 115 grains and running through all those guns. It is fine. No problem there at all. Let's talk about rifle cartridges, especially 5.56/223. You probably need a lot of it to train. If you're going to get really good with an AR-15, plus shooting a high round count, 5.56, you're going to need a lot of it. You can get the cheap stuff, and it's not bad. So here I do have some STV. This is some cheap stuff from the Czech Republic. Bought a lot of that for a decent price. And there's nothing wrong with it. It runs. It's 55 grain. I can train a lot with that. You can also get Wolf, Tula. There's a lot of cheap stuff that you can get. I will point out that the super cheap stuff is noticeably weaker. So if you have a gun that's really fine-tuned for low recoil, the cheap stuff, especially in the winter, might not cycle it as much as well as the full-powered stuff. So keep that in mind. Mid-range stuff, you've got stuff from Lake City, for example. Lake City is the ammo plant that the government uses for military contracts or whatever. And right now, Winchester is the company that is running that plant. M193, definitely a good cartridge. Very simple, cheap. It was used, it's the military standard, one of the military standards. And so here's some other, I got some more M193 in some 30-round box in stripper clips. Stocking up on some of that is never bad. M193 is high-powered stuff to train with, but it's still fairly cheap. Also, many people will say that M193 is still going to defend very well. It's going to do the damage it needs to within that range. 300 yards and in, that 55 grain is going to do a lot of work. Moving up to higher stuff, like for accuracy / distance, I do have some 77 grain open tip match from AAC here. That stuff you probably would want to pay a little bit more, or you should be probably willing to pay a little bit more for, partially because that is more of a long range, for precision or longer distance shots. It certainly works well at close range. It's more of a kind of a defensive round. It works a little better in 55 grain, but you probably don't need as much of that. But if you can find that for a good deal, and AAC in the past has been very good for that, that is not a wrong direction to go. Lastly, let's talk about these boutique cartridges. By boutique, I mean the things that you don't really need that badly. Now, we don't need a reason to want ammunition. Okay, we're Americans. We live in a free country. We can buy this stuff if we want to, and we can keep it or shoot it, right? But right now, a boutique cartridge, which people wouldn't really think of, is actually 7.62 by 39. It is not incredibly expensive still. It's like, about the same price as 5.56 roughly, but it was popular. It was much more popular in the past because it was so cheap. It has not gotten that cheap. Also, we don't really think of an AKM or AK-47 as something that we need to defend, for Second Amendment reasons, we're not really going to default to that. We're probably going to go with an AR-15. And so 7.62 by 39, well, I have an AKM to know how to run an AKM. I have the ammo for it. It wasn't incredibly expensive. It's just kind of cool to shoot at the range. If I'm trying to stock up a lot, or if I have to only get a few cartridges, I'm not getting 7.62 by 39. I would call that a boutique cartridge. Oddly enough, the inverse has happened with 300 Blackout. Here we have some Remington 220 grain 300 Blackout, and 5 years ago this stuff was kind of expensive, and now it is quite a bit less expensive. So that boutique-ness has shifted. Also, it is much easier to reload 300 Blackout. It is very economic to reload 300 Blackout versus some of the other cartridges. But still, as far as defending the Second Amendment or something to really stock up on, 300 Blackout probably isn't at the top of the list. I got a 300 Blackout right here. I think its benefits have much more to do with suppression and whatever. It's a whole different video. But I don't stock up on 300 Blackout, but I have, enough, I guess, whatever that is. Some of the other boutique cartridges could be considered your traditional straight wall pistol cartridges. So we got 45 ACP here. We have 32 ACP, also 40 Smith & Wesson, 380 ACP. Those are very common and fairly inexpensive, relatively, cartridges. But for the most part, people are not going to train a lot with those. Maybe you might use 380, maybe even 32 ACP for defensive situations. Maybe 45 ACP is exactly what you want to do to carry with that, or even 40 Smith & Wesson. But if that's the case, then just replace those, or replace 9mm with those cartridges. Stock up on that, train with it, get great at it. But for the most part in America, 2025, 2026, we are not defaulting to those older straight wall pistol caliber pistol cartridges. We got some other weird oddballs in there. 7.62 by 25 Tokarev. That's one of those things that if you're a Tokarev guy, you buy a lot of it and you run it through all your boutique, comm block cool guns, okay? Keep doing that. And if you find it cheap, there you go, keep doing it. But strangely enough, 30-30 is something I would classify as an oddball cartridge now. We do shoot it, but we just don't need to stock up on it. It's not something that we use a lot of. Same thing, 7.62 by 54R. My mom and my stepdad, they both, he runs a 30-30 while he's hunting deer, and she runs a 7.62 by 54R hunting deer. They don't need a lot of those cartridges. I can give them a box of that each for Christmas, and that can last a long time. 30-06 actually is one of those cartridges which I'd call boutique, because again, you don't buy a lot of it. If you're buying 30-06, you can pay a lot for that cartridge per round, and it still lasts you a while. It's not really something you're going to stock up on. So a few others out there like 6.5 Grendel, 6mm arc. These could be higher volume cartridges, but these are more specific. You want to be committed to that cartridge and run a lot of it before you're really going to stock up on that. It's good to have a baseline, but you could really overcommit to spending a lot of money on ammo with those, and then decide that cartridge isn't for you. We obviously have like 308, 6.5 Creedmoor. Those are much cheaper now, and they're still spendy, but those are pretty well established as common cartridges, but they're still a little, like longer range stuff. In that instance, you don't really buy a lot of that in bulk because it's not going to be as accurate. You would still want to get a higher, quality round that's going to be consistent for you. You're going for accuracy, precision in most of those shots versus high volume. Lastly, as far as what ammo to buy, once you buy it, you need to make sure you have good storage for it. There's a few different things to be mindful of. Make sure that your family knows the importance of you stocking up on this. If you feel that this is important, they should know why, or at least that it's important to you. And then you want to prevent theft. Keep it locked up to some extent, but really just make sure that it's, I out of sight, out of mind for the most part. You want to keep it dry, obviously. And lastly, make sure that you keep it organized. I'm not saying have a big Excel spreadsheet with that, although I'm sure many people will do that. I understand the appeal, the nerding out about that. But stay organized with your ammo so that you're not buying too much of it, or maybe you're like, oh, I got that big lot of 147, and then I want to buy more of that, and then you realize, oh, that wasn't 147, that was 124. Whatever it is, like, you want to be organized so that you're efficient with what you're purchasing. Your purchasing power has, your dollar has more purchasing power. Basically, that's about it for part 2 of you should buy ammo right now, and what ammo you should get, those 3 main cartridges, and why those boutique cartridges might not be best to buy right now. Hope you enjoyed part 1. Part 2, thanks for sticking with me, and stick around for part 3 very soon. That's it for now.